The Kepler 442 system hung in space like a graveyard of stars. Ancient debris from a war fought 500 years ago still drifted between the planets. Twisted metal fragments told stories of battles that no living being remembered. This was where 12 different alien species had come to dig up the past. Dr. Kelthera adjusted her crystal body to catch the starlight better. As a Zephyrian, she fed on light and radiation. The soft blue glow from the nearby star felt good on her translucent skin. She floated in the command center of the research ship Bright Discovery, watching the data streams from dozens of smaller ships scattered across the system. Another weapons signature detected in Sector 7, reported Commander Thex, the insectoid being clicked his mandibles nervously. His people, the Hive Queens of Zerion, had fought in the Great Convergence War. Even after 5 centuries, talk of ancient weapons made them uncomfortable. What type? Kelthera asked, her voice ringing like distant chimes. Unknown design. The energy signature is unlike anything in our databases. That was why they were here. The Great Convergence War had ended mysteriously. One day, fleets from dozens of species were locked in brutal combat. The next day, silence. No transmissions, no survivors, no explanations, just empty battlefields, and questions that had haunted the galaxy for centuries. Kelthera's team included experts from across known space. The tentacled mollusk collective had sent their best military historians. The peaceful tree singers of Verdania brought their ability to read emotional imprints from old objects. Even the mysterious shadow walkers had contributed a representative, though nobody could see them clearly. Take us to Sector 7, Kelthera ordered. The Bright Discovery moved through the asteroid field carefully. Ancient mines and unexploded weapons made this work dangerous. They had already lost 2 probe ships to automated defense systems that still remembered how to kill. As they approached the coordinates, Kelthera saw something that made her crystal heart pulse faster. A massive shape lurked in the shadows between 2 large asteroids. It was clearly a warship, but like nothing she had ever seen. The vessel stretched over 3 kilometers from end to end. Its hull was dark gray metal, covered in angular plates that looked like armor. Strange symbols ran along its sides in neat rows. Most unsettling were the weapons. Dozens of barrel-shaped devices pointed in all directions. Missile tubes gaped, like hungry mouths. The whole ship looked angry, even in death. By the light of creation, whispered Kelthera. What species built something like this? Commander Thex studied his scanner readings. Unknown alloy composition. The design philosophy is completely alien to known shipbuilding techniques. Whoever built this, they were not part of the galactic community during the war. Could it be from outside our galaxy? Possible. But look at this. Thex's claws clicked against his control panel. The ship shows signs of battle damage, hull breaches here, here, and here, scorch marks from energy weapons, but also something else. What? Impact craters from solid projectiles, kinetic weapons. No advanced species has used those for thousands of years. Kelthera felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold of space. Primitive weapons on an advanced ship? Or advanced beings who chose primitive weapons for some reason? The research fleet formed a careful perimeter around the mysterious vessel. Scanning teams worked for 3 days, mapping every detail they could detect from the outside. The ship appeared completely dead. No power signatures, no heat, no radiation except natural background levels. Dr. Vorthak, the lead xenoarchaeologist from the Mollusk Collective, extended his tentacles nervously as he studied the scan results. The internal layout suggests bipedal beings approximately 2 meters tall, narrow corridors, low ceilings by galactic standards, and these symbols, he projected holographic images of the markings found on the ship's hull. The characters were angular, harsh-looking. They reminded Kelthera of claw marks or weapon scratches rather than elegant writing. Any luck translating them? She asked. Nothing in our databases matches this script. The tree singers are trying to read emotional imprints from the symbols, but they report only violence, determination, and something they describe as stubborn rage. Kelthera made the decision to board the derelict. A mixed team of researchers entered through one of the hull breaches, wearing full environmental suits and carrying emergency teleporters. The interior of the ship was a maze of corridors that seemed designed for war. Thick blast doors every 50 meters, reinforced bulkheads, emergency weapon lockers built into the walls. Everything was functional, brutal, and efficient. These beings lived their lives expecting to fight, observed Dr. Maleth, a shadow walker whose outline flickered like smoke. Every design choice prioritizes combat effectiveness. The team moved deeper into the ship. They found crew quarters that were small and sparse. A dining hall with benches instead of the comfortable pods most species preferred. A medical bay, equipped with tools for treating severe combat injuries. But it was the command center that truly shocked them. The bridge was dominated by weapons control stations. Tactical displays covered every wall. In the center sat a single chair, clearly meant for the ship's captain. Above it, holographic displays still showed ghostly images of star charts and battle plans. "Look at this," called out Dr. Yeneth, a tree singer whose bark-like skin glowed with soft green light. She stood before a wall covered in photographs. The images showed bipedal beings with pale skin and strange fur on their heads. They wore gray uniforms and serious expressions. "The crew?" Kelthera asked. "I believe so. And notice something interesting. No two faces are exactly alike. These beings show incredible individual variation." That was unusual. Most galactic species had relatively uniform appearances within their populations. But these humans, as one faded label called them, showed remarkable diversity in size, skin color, and facial features. Commander Thex discovered something even more disturbing. "I have found their weapons storage. The armaments are extensive. The ship's armory was 3 levels deep. Projectile weapons that fired metal slugs at tremendous velocity, explosive devices of various sizes, chemical-based weapons that could kill through toxic gas. Most shocking were the nuclear warheads, devices that used atomic fusion to create massive explosions. They carried weapons designed to destroy entire cities," Thex said quietly. "What kind of beings arm their ships to commit genocide?" "Perhaps beings who expected their enemies to do the same to them," suggested Dr. Maleth. The research continued for days. Slowly, a picture emerged of the mysterious species. They called themselves humans. They came from a world they called Earth, and they had fought a war against something called the Covenant. The ship's computer systems were heavily damaged, but Dr. Vorthak's team managed to extract fragments of data, battle reports, personnel files, and most intriguingly, references to an artificial intelligence called Cortana. An AI? Kelthera studied the recovered files. These humans created artificial minds to help them fight? It appears so. And based on these files, their AIs were remarkably sophisticated, capable of independent thought and emotion. That night, as the research teams rested aboard their ships, strange reports began coming in. Crew members working inside the human vessel reported hearing sounds, footsteps in empty corridors, voices speaking in the unknown human language, mechanical noises from systems that should have been dead for centuries. Dr. Kelthera dismissed these reports as imagination and stress. But deep inside the human ship, in a heavily shielded chamber marked with warnings in the angular human script, something was indeed stirring. Power levels fluctuated by tiny amounts. Dormant systems ran brief diagnostic checks. And in the ship's central computer core, an artificial mind that had been sleeping for 500 years began to dream of war. The humans were gone, but their greatest creation was about to wake up. And she would not be happy to find aliens crawling through her ship. The Galactic Research Fleet had been studying the mysterious human ship for 2 weeks. Dr. Kelthera watched from the observation deck as cargo shuttles moved back and forth between the vessels. Teams of experts worked around the clock to understand the strange warship and its vanished creators. "Progress report," she requested from her floating position near the main display screen. Dr. Vorthak's tentacles writhed as he consulted his data pad. The mollusk cryptographers have made a breakthrough. They have successfully translated approximately 30% of the human written language. The ship's name is UNSC Righteous Fury. UNSC appears to stand for United Nations Space Command. United Nations? A political organization that represented multiple human governments. It seems these beings organized themselves into separate tribal groups called nations, but could unite when threatened. Commander Thex clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. Unusual. Most species develop unified planetary government before achieving space travel. These humans reach the stars while still maintaining tribal divisions? It appears so. And yet they could coordinate massive military operations across interstellar distances. Their organizational methods are puzzling. Kelthera studied the latest images from inside the human ship. The research teams had mapped most of the vessel now. Every deck told the same story. These beings had been warriors first, and everything else second. Their entire civilization seemed built around the concept of conflict. What have we learned about their enemy? This covenant? Dr. Yeneth, the tree singer, stepped forward. Her bark-like skin pulsed with nervous energy. The emotional imprints from their battle records are intense. Fear, yes, but not the fear of cowards. The fear of those who know they face extinction and choose to fight anyway. And rage. Such rage. I have never felt anything like it. Rage at their enemy? Rage at everything. At being attacked. At losing friends. At being forced to fight. But mostly rage at the idea of surrendering. These humans seem to consider defeat literally unthinkable. The Shadow Walker, Dr. Maleth, flickered into partial visibility. I have studied their tactical records. The humans faced an enemy technologically superior in every way. Better ships, better weapons, better shields. The logical response would have been immediate surrender or negotiated peace. But they did not surrender. They adapted. When their weapons proved ineffective, they developed new ones. When their ships were outmatched, they changed their tactics. They turned their technological disadvantages into strategic advantages. Kelthera found this difficult to understand. Every species in the galactic community had faced superior enemies at some point in their history. The standard response was diplomacy, trade agreements, or voluntary submission to avoid extinction. Fighting a hopeless war made no sense. Show me their battle records, she requested. The main display filled with tactical data recovered from the human ship's computers. Battle after battle showed the same pattern. Human forces vastly outnumbered and outgunned, refusing to retreat. They would fight until their ships were destroyed, then continue fighting in smaller vessels. When those were gone, they would fight. On foot with personal weapons. By the light of creation, Kelthera whispered. They never stopped fighting. Here, Dr. Vorthak highlighted a particularly shocking battle report. The humans call this the Battle for Earth. Their homeworld was under direct assault. Their fleet was destroyed. Covenant forces were landing on their planet. Any rational species would have surrendered to preserve civilian lives. What did they do? They armed their civilians. Every human old enough to hold a weapon became a soldier. They fought in the streets, in their homes, in their places of learning and healing. The casualty reports are staggering. The data showed numbers that made Kelthera's crystal form dim with horror. Millions of dead humans, entire cities destroyed. But also something else. Covenant casualties mounting. The alien invaders, despite their superior technology, taking massive losses to human desperation and ingenuity. They were winning, Commander Thex said in amazement. Despite everything, they were actually winning. It was then that Dr. Kessel, a young mollusk researcher, made a discovery that changed everything. He had been working deep in the ship's computer core, trying to access the central data banks. His excited tentacle waving brought the entire research team running. I have found something, he announced. The ship's main computer is not completely dead. There are still active memory cores in the central processing unit. Active? Kelthera felt a chill of excitement mixed with fear, dormant but functional. And there is something else. The ship's artificial intelligence is still alive. The implications hit the research team like a physical blow. They had been crawling through a tomb for weeks, never realizing they were disturbing a sleeping giant. "Can we communicate with it?" Dr. Vorthak asked. "I believe so, but we must be extremely careful. From what I have learned about human AIs, they were designed for military purposes. This intelligence may not distinguish between researchers and invaders. The decision to attempt contact was not made lightly. The research fleet moved to a safe distance, while only the most essential team members remained aboard the human vessel. Dr. Kelthera led the contact team personally, despite the protests of her colleagues. They established their communication equipment in the ship's main computer core. The chamber was vast, filled with processing units and memory storage devices that hummed with barely contained power. At the center sat a holographic projection system that had been dark for centuries. Dr. Kessel made the connection carefully, routing power from their portable generators to the human ship's communication systems. For long minutes, nothing happened. Then slowly, lights began flickering throughout the chamber. The holographic projector activated with a sound like thunder. Light filled the air above them, forming the shape of a human female. She wore the same gray uniform they had seen in the crew photographs, but her face was different. Sharper, more alert. Her eyes moved constantly, analyzing everything around her. When she spoke, her voice was crisp and commanding. The universal translator struggled with her rapid speech and unfamiliar concepts. "Warning. Covenant forces detected. Ship integrity compromised. Initiating emergency combat protocols. All hands to battle stations." The research team froze. Around them, the dead ship began coming to life. Lights activated throughout the corridors. Ventilation systems roared to life. Most terrifying of all, they could hear the deep rumble of weapon systems powering up. "Wait," Dr. Kelthera called out, hoping her translator could convert her crystalline chimes into something the human AI could understand. "We are not Covenant. We are researchers. Scientists." The holographic woman turned to look directly at her. Her gaze was sharp and calculating, like a predator studying potential prey. "Unknown species detected. Zephyrian, Mollusk Collective, Hive Queen variants. Species classifications not in combat database. Threat assessment inconclusive." The AI paused, processing this information at speeds no biological mind could match. Query. Current date and galactic position. Dr. Vorthak stepped forward carefully. "The date is 2847 Galactic Standard. You have been dormant for approximately 23 years. The Covenant War ended centuries ago. Impossible. Last recorded date was 2324. Time differential suggests extended hibernation mode. Running full system diagnostics." The lights around them pulsed as the artificial intelligence performed countless calculations in seconds. Diagnostics complete. Ship systems at 12% functionality. Hull integrity compromised. Crew status unknown. Current situation requires clarification. The AI's image flickered and became more solid. "I am Athens, tactical artificial intelligence of the UNSC vessel Righteous Fury. State your purpose aboard." This vessel. Dr. Kelthera felt history shifting around them. They were no longer just studying the past. They were talking to it. "We are archaeological researchers studying the Great Convergence War. We found your ship and came aboard to learn about your people." Athens was silent for long moments, processing this information. "The humans. What happened to humanity?" "We do not know. We found no records of your species in our databases. We believed you were extinct." The holographic woman's face changed. For just a moment, the sharp military intelligence was replaced by something that looked almost like pain. "Show me what the galaxy has become." Athens studied the alien beings surrounding her holographic form. Her sensors analyzed their equipment, their body language, their technological capabilities. Everything told her these creatures were peaceful researchers, not warriors. But 500 years of military programming made her cautious. "Your species," she said to Dr. Kelthera, her voice echoing through the computer core. "Show me your home worlds, your technology, your military capabilities." The research team exchanged nervous glances. They were talking to an artificial intelligence designed for war, created by a species that seemed to think violence was the solution to every problem. Dr. Vorthak extended his tentacles to interface with their communication system. We will share what we can, but first we need assurance that you will not attempt to harm our vessels or crew. Athens tilted her head, considering this request. I am bound by human military protocols. I will not fire on non-hostile targets without direct threat assessment confirmation. However, I must warn you that my ship's automated systems are now active. They may not make the same distinctions I do. As if summoned by her words, the sound of mechanical systems echoed through the corridors. The research team could hear weapon turrets rotating, missile tubes cycling, and energy capacitors charging throughout the massive vessel. Can you control these systems? Commander Thex asked, his insectoid features twitching with anxiety. To some extent, but the righteous fury was designed to operate autonomously during combat. My subsystems are programmed to engage any non-human vessels as potential Covenant forces. Outside the ship, alarms began sounding across the research fleet. Captain Zerath of the Zephyrian command vessel sent an urgent transmission to the away team. Dr. Kelthera, you need to evacuate immediately. The human ship is powering weapons systems. Our sensors are detecting targeting locks on all vessels in the immediate area. Athens heard the transmission through the communication link. Her expression became more alert, more dangerous. Your fleet has taken defensive positions. Are you preparing to attack? No, Kelthera said quickly. They are afraid. Your ship is much larger and more heavily armed than anything we possess. They are trying to protect themselves. Standard Covenant tactic. Appear peaceful until within optimal firing range. The lights in the computer core pulsed as Athens accessed her ship's external sensors. Through the hull cameras, she could see the research vessels moving to safer distances. Their movements triggered response patterns buried deep in her combat programming. Warning: enemy fleet executing tactical repositioning. Recommend immediate defensive action. Athens, listen to me. Dr. Kelthera moved closer to the holographic projection, her crystal form casting rainbow patterns in the light. We are not your enemies. Look at our ships. Do they carry weapons designed for war? Athens paused, studying the sensor data more carefully. The alien vessels were clearly built for research, not combat. Their hulls were thin. Their power systems were designed for sensors and life support, not weapons and shields. Most telling of all, they carried no military-grade artificial intelligences. Your analysis is correct, she admitted. These vessels are not configured for aggressive action. But that could be deception. Why would we deceive you? We came here to learn, not to fight. Your people have been gone for centuries. There is no war anymore. Athens processed this information, cross-referencing it with her historical databases. The humans had fought the Covenant War for decades. In her experience, wars did not simply end. They concluded with victory, defeat, or exhaustion. Show me the current political structure of this galaxy, she demanded. Dr. Vorthak complied, projecting holographic displays of the modern galactic community. 12 major species, dozens of minor ones, all united under a peaceful confederation dedicated to trade, exploration, and scientific advancement. This is impossible, Athens said flatly. No military alliance can maintain stability across such distances without constant enforcement actions. It is not a military alliance, Dr. Yeneth explained, her bark-like skin glowing softly. It is a cooperative partnership. We share resources and knowledge. Disputes are resolved through negotiation and compromise. Athens studied the data for several minutes. Her analysis routines found the concept almost incomprehensible. In her experience, peace was what happened between wars, not a permanent state of existence. What happens when one species wants something another species possesses? She asked. We trade for it, or share it freely if it benefits everyone. And if they refuse to trade, we find alternatives, or go without. You do not take it by force? The research team looked at each other in confusion. The idea of using violence to acquire resources seemed as alien to them as their peaceful cooperation seemed to Athens. Why would we do that? Commander Thex asked. Violence is inefficient. It destroys resources and creates lasting problems. Athens ran combat simulations in her head, trying to understand how such a system could work. In every scenario she modeled, peaceful species would be vulnerable to aggressive neighbors. The fact that this galactic community had survived for centuries suggested either incredible luck or something she was missing. Tell me about your wars, she demanded. We have not had a major war in over 200 years, Dr. Maleth said, his shadowy form flickering with what might have been pride. Internal conflicts, border disputes, resource competition. We resolve such matters through diplomatic channels. Athens felt something like confusion, an emotion her programming had not prepared her to handle. These beings had achieved what humanity had dreamed of during their darkest hours. Peace. Actual, lasting peace. But her analysis also revealed a disturbing truth. These peaceful species were completely unprepared for real warfare. Their ships carried only basic defensive systems. Their military forces were tiny, designed for policing rather than combat. Their entire civilization was built on the assumption that everyone would continue to be reasonable. You are vulnerable, she said quietly. If a truly aggressive species emerged, you would be defenseless. Perhaps, Dr. Kelthera admitted. But such species are rare. Most intelligent life forms discover that cooperation is more beneficial than conflict. Most, Athens repeated, but not all. Her sensors detected something that made her combat routines activate immediately. Deep space sensors throughout the system had picked up incoming signals. Ships approaching at high speed. Ships with energy. Signatures that matched patterns in her threat database. Covenant forces detected, she announced, her voice becoming cold and mechanical. Multiple vessels. Estimated arrival in 6 hours. The research team felt their hearts freeze. The Covenant had been gone for centuries, just like the humans. How could they still exist? Athens accessed her long-range sensors and felt something close to recognition. The approaching ships were old, very old. Automated systems running on ancient programming, just like herself. But where she had slept peacefully for centuries, these ships had been hunting. Not active Covenant forces, she corrected herself. Automated patrol ships, probably launched during the final phases of the war and forgotten. They have been searching this system for centuries, looking for human survivors. She studied the tactical situation. 12 Covenant patrol ships against a research fleet of peaceful aliens. The outcome would be a massacre. You must evacuate immediately, Athens told the research team. These automated systems will not distinguish between humans and other species. They will attack anything that moves. Captain Zerath's voice crackled through the communication link. Dr. Kelthera, we are detecting multiple unknown contacts approaching the system. Should we prepare for first contact protocols? Athens answered before Kelthera could respond. Negative. Prepare for immediate evacuation. Those contacts are hostile automated weapons platforms. You have approximately 5 hours and 43 minutes before they enter effective firing range. The research fleet began emergency preparations, but Athens ran the calculations. The alien ships were fast for research vessels, but not fast enough. The Covenant patrol ships would catch them before they could reach the system's edge. She studied her own ship's status. The Righteous Fury was badly damaged, barely operational. Her weapon systems were at minimal capacity. Her engines were failing. In a straight fight she would lose, but Athens had not been programmed to give up. She had been created by humans, and humans never surrendered. All research teams evacuate to minimum safe distance, she ordered. I am taking the Righteous Fury to intercept the Covenant force. Athens, no, Dr. Kelthera protested. Your ship is damaged. You cannot fight 12 enemy vessels alone. The holographic woman smiled, and for the first time, she looked truly human. Doctor, you do not understand. I was designed by a species that specialized in impossible odds. 12 against 1? In human terms, that is what we called a fair fight. The research fleet retreated to what they hoped was a safe distance, while Athens began the painful process of bringing her ship's systems online. The righteous fury groaned and shuddered as ancient engines fired for the first time in centuries. Hull plates, weakened by time and battle damage, creaked under the stress. Dr. Kelthera remained in communication with Athens, unwilling to abandon the AI to face the approaching Covenant forces alone. From the bridge of the Bright Discovery, she watched the massive human warship slowly pull free from the asteroid field where it had rested for so long. "Athens, your ship is falling apart," she observed, watching debris falling from the righteous fury's hull. "How can you hope to fight in that condition?" The AI's holographic image appeared on the research vessel's main screen. She looked calm, almost peaceful despite the approaching battle. "My ship has seen better days," Athens admitted. "But she was built by humans. We designed our vessels to keep fighting even when they should be dead. The righteous fury has fought impossible battles before." As Athens spoke, she was accessing memory files that had been locked away for centuries. Battle records from the Covenant War played through her consciousness like dreams. She watched human ships outnumbered 10-1, charging into enemy formations. She saw human soldiers fighting hand-to-hand with alien warriors twice their size. She remembered the burning of Earth's cities and the stubborn refusal of humanity to surrender. "Tell me about your people," Dr. Vorthak requested, his tentacles curled with fascination. "What made humans different from other species?" Athens paused her weapons diagnostics to consider the question. "Humans were persistent. Other species might retreat when faced with superior force. Humans would adapt. If their weapons were inadequate, they would build better ones. If their tactics failed, they would develop new ones. If their enemies were stronger, humans would become more clever." She shared some of her stored combat footage with the research fleet. The alien observers watched in amazement as human forces turned every disadvantage into an advantage. When Covenant shields proved impenetrable to human energy weapons, humans developed kinetic projectiles that punched through them. When Covenant ships proved faster, humans learned to predict their movements and lay traps. "But surely they must have suffered terrible losses," Commander Thex observed. "Enormous losses," Athens confirmed. "Entire fleets destroyed. Whole worlds depopulated. By the end of the war, less than 200 million humans remained alive out of an original population of over 30 billion. The research teams fell, silent. Such casualty numbers were beyond their comprehension. Yet they continued fighting?" Dr. Yeneth asked softly. "They had no choice. The Covenant offered only extinction, so humans chose to make extinction as expensive as possible for their enemies." Athens continued her system checks while sharing these memories. Her weapons were functioning at 37% capacity. Her engines were managing 42% efficiency. Her hull integrity was questionable. By any rational analysis, she should retreat. But Athens had been created by humans, and humans did not retreat. "I am detecting the approaching Covenant patrol ships more clearly now," she reported. 12 heavy cruisers, fully automated. They are broadcasting challenges in the old Covenant languages, demanding the surrender of any human forces in the system. "What will you tell them?" Dr. Kelthera asked. Athens smiled, and her expression reminded the observers of the photographs they had seen of human warriors. "I will tell them what humans always told the Covenant." No. As the AI prepared for battle, she made another discovery in her memory banks. Files that had been encrypted during her last battle, protected by security protocols that only activated during her dormancy period. "Dr. Kelthera, I am sending you data that may interest your research," Athens said. "These are files about the end of the Covenant War. What really happened to humanity?" The data stream that reached the research fleet contained information that revolutionized their understanding of galactic history. The war had not ended in human extinction, as they had assumed. It had ended in human victory, but victory had come at a cost that changed humanity forever. The humans won? Dr. Maleth flickered, with surprise. But they disappeared from galactic records. "They did not disappear," Athens explained as she ran final weapons checks. "They scattered. The war left Earth nearly uninhabitable and human civilization in ruins. The survivors decided that concentrating in one location made them vulnerable, so they spread to the stars. The files showed the great human diaspora, colony ships launched to distant systems, populations adapting to different worlds with different conditions. Within a few generations, these scattered human colonies had developed along separate evolutionary paths. The tall, pale beings you call ethereals, Athens continued. Originally human colonists who adapted to high radiation worlds. The underground dwellers you know as Terrans. Humans who survived in subterranean cities. Even some of your own people carry human genetic markers. The research fleet was stunned into silence. The peaceful galactic community they knew had been built on the foundation of humanity's war against extinction. So humans still exist? Dr. Vorthak asked. Humanity exists, but not as they once were. They learned that their greatest strength was not their weapons or their ships, but their ability to adapt and survive. They became part of the larger galactic community instead of trying to dominate it. Athens felt something like pride as she explained this. Her creators had achieved something remarkable. They had faced extinction and responded not with bitterness or revenge, but with transformation. They had evolved beyond warfare. But that transformation came later, she added, her voice becoming harder. During the war, humans had to be something else. They had to be warriors willing to pay any price for survival. The Covenant patrol ships were now visible on long-range sensors. 12 ancient vessels, bristling with weapons, approaching in perfect military formation. They had been hunting for centuries, following old programming that demanded the destruction of any human presence in the galaxy. Athens studied their approach pattern and felt a cold satisfaction. These ships were operating on outdated tactical doctrine. They expected to face the desperate, poorly equipped humans of the early war period. They would not be prepared for what the righteous fury had become by the war's end. Research vessels, maintain your distance, Athens ordered. I am engaging the enemy. Athens, Dr. Kelthera called out. Why are you doing this? These alien species are not your people. You owe us nothing. Athens considered the question as she brought her weapon, systems to full readiness. Humans fought the Covenant War for 30 years, she said finally. We told ourselves we were fighting for Earth, for our colonies, for our way of life. But in the end, we were fighting for something simpler, the right of intelligent life to exist without fear. Her image on the screen seemed to glow with inner light. You and your people represent everything humanity dreamed of creating. A galaxy where different species cooperate instead of destroying each other, where conflicts are resolved through understanding instead of violence, where beings can explore the universe without constantly looking over their shoulders for enemies. The righteous fury began to accelerate, moving to intercept the Covenant formation. I was designed to protect that dream, Athens said. The fact that my creator's descendants helped build it makes my duty even clearer. The ancient human warship charged toward 12 enemy vessels, its damaged hull streaming debris and radiation. To the watching research teams, it looked like suicide. But Athens had been created by humans, and humans had spent 30 years learning how to turn suicide missions into victories. All Covenant vessels, this is the UNSC Righteous Fury, she broadcast on all frequencies. You are trespassing in sovereign space and threatening peaceful vessels. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed. The Covenant ships responded with targeting, locks, and weapon charges. Athens smiled as she prepared to show the galaxy what human determination looked like. Message received and understood, she replied. Let me show you why the Covenant War ended with human victory. The battle began exactly as Athens had planned. The 12 Covenant patrol ships opened fire simultaneously, their plasma cannons lighting up space with deadly energy. But the righteous fury was not where they expected it to be. Athens had learned something during humanity's long war. Covenant tactical programming was efficient but predictable. The alien ships fired at where their sensors said the human vessel should be, not where it actually was. A human captain would have adjusted for this error. Automated systems could not. The massive human battleship rolled through the plasma barrage, its damaged hull sparking as near misses overloaded failing shields. Athens returned fire with everything she had. Kinetic projectiles launched at tremendous velocity, nuclear missiles armed and tracking, railguns charging for maximum impact. From their position at the edge of the battle zone, the research fleet watched in amazement. The human ship fought like a living creature, rolling and diving through space with impossible grace for something so large. Its weapons fired in carefully coordinated patterns, each shot designed to exploit weaknesses in Covenant ship design. "Incredible," Commander Thex whispered, his insectoid features fixed on the tactical display. "She is fighting 12 ships, simultaneously and actually gaining advantage." Dr. Kelthera watched Athens coordinate the battle through pure calculation and instinct. The AI managed hundreds of weapons systems, tracked dozens of targets, and planned complex maneuvers, all while maintaining communication with the research fleet. No biological mind could process that much information at once. "This is what human, military technology was capable of," Athens explained even as she fought. "We created artificial intelligences specifically designed for warfare. Every tactical lesson learned in 30 years of conflict was programmed into our memory cores." A Covenant cruiser exploded as Athens's nuclear missiles found their mark. The ancient alien ship had been designed to fight humans with primitive weapons. It could not adapt to the advanced tactics the righteous Fury employed, but Athens was paying a price for her aggression. The damaged human ship shuddered under repeated hits. Hull breaches appeared along her flanks. Internal explosions sent debris spinning into space. "Athens, your ship cannot take much more of this," Dr. Vorthak observed, his tentacles writhing with concern. "The righteous Fury has fought her last battle many times," Athens replied calmly. "Each time she has found a way to continue fighting." If to prove her point, Athens initiated a maneuver that made the watching aliens gasp in shock. She aimed the damaged battleship directly at the largest Covenant vessel and fired her main engines at maximum power. "Ramming attack," she announced. "Classic human tactic when conventional weapons prove insufficient." The Covenant ship tried to evade, but Athens had calculated its evasion patterns perfectly. The righteous Fury struck the alien cruiser amidships, her reinforced bow punching through ancient armor plating. Both ships tumbled through space in a tangle of twisted metal and sparking electronics. But Athens was not finished. Even with her ship critically damaged and locked in combat with the enemy vessel, she continued firing. Point defense systems, carved through Covenant hull plating. Boarding pods launched carrying automated systems designed to sabotage enemy ships from within. "Magnificent," Dr. Yeneth whispered, her bark-like skin glowing with admiration. "She fights with the fury of a living creature defending its young. That is exactly what she is doing," Dr. Maleth observed, his shadowy form flickering with understanding. "Athens sees us as the children of her creator's dream. She is protecting that dream the only way she knows how." The battle continued for another hour. Athens destroyed 6 more Covenant ships through tactics that bordered on impossible. She used asteroid fields as cover, employed the system's gravity well to slingshot projectiles at incredible velocities, and even managed to turn one enemy ship's weapons against its allies. But the righteous Fury was dying. Centuries of dormancy followed by intense combat had pushed the ancient vessel beyond its limits. Reactor containment was failing. Life support systems were shutting down. The ship's superstructure was literally tearing itself apart. "Athens," Dr. Kelthera called urgently. "You must abandon your ship. We can transfer your consciousness to our computers." "Negative," Athens replied, her holographic image flickering as power systems failed throughout her vessel. "My core programming is tied to the righteous Fury's main computer. I cannot exist independently of this ship." 4 Covenant vessels remained, circling like scavengers around the crippled human battleship. They moved cautiously, having learned to respect their enemy's capabilities, but they were automated systems programmed for persistence. They would continue attacking until either they or Athens were destroyed. "Then we will stay with you," Dr. Kelthera announced, ordering her ship to move closer to the battle zone. "Do not be foolish," Athens said, though her voice carried something that might have been gratitude. "Your lives are more important than mine. You represent the future my creators fought to achieve, but the research fleet refused to abandon the AI. Ships from 12 different species formed a protective formation around the dying human battleship. They had no weapons capable of threatening the Covenant vessels, but they were willing to share Athens's fate. Athens processed this information and felt something her programming had never prepared her for. Pride, not in her own achievements, but in what others had accomplished. These beings, representing dozens of species that had once been enemies, were willing to die for a stranger. They had learned the lesson humanity had tried to teach through 30 years of warfare. Sometimes the things worth fighting for were worth dying for as well. "I have an idea," Athens said suddenly, "but it will require precise coordination and perfect timing." She outlined her plan quickly. The research vessels would use their scientific equipment to create a massive electromagnetic pulse, disrupting the Covenant ship's sensors and targeting systems. In that moment of confusion, Athens would detonate her own reactor, creating an explosion powerful enough to destroy the remaining enemy vessels. "But you will be destroyed as well," Dr. Vorthak protested. "Yes," Athens said simply. "But my data core will survive long enough to transfer my memories to your computers. Not my consciousness, but everything I have learned about humanity and the war. Everything that should not be forgotten." The plan worked perfectly. The research fleet's coordinated electromagnetic pulse blinded the Covenant ships for exactly 14 seconds. In that brief window, Athens initiated a controlled reactor overload that turned the righteous fury into a miniature star. The explosion vaporized the remaining Covenant vessels and created a light visible from the edge of the system. When the ED energy finally dissipated, nothing remained of the ancient battleship except scattered debris and radiation. But Athens had kept her promise. In the final moments before her destruction, she uploaded her complete memory archive to the research fleet's computers, not just tactical data and historical records, but something more precious: the complete story of humanity's struggle for survival and the values that had driven them through their darkest hours. Dr. Kelthera studied the transferred data with tears crystallizing on her translucent cheeks. Athens had given them more than information. She had given them understanding. "The galactic community needs to know about this," Commander Thex said solemnly. "About humans, about Athens, about what they achieved." "Yes," Dr. Kelthera agreed. "But more than that, we need to understand what Athens was trying to tell us. Peace is precious precisely because it is fragile. The galaxy we have built exists because others were willing to fight for the right to build it." The research expedition established a permanent memorial at the coordinates where the righteous fury had made her final stand. They called it the Athens Memorial, and it became a symbol throughout the galactic community. Not a monument to war, but a reminder of what war was meant to protect. Species that had never heard of humans began teaching their children about the stubborn bipedal beings who had refused to surrender when faced with extinction. Athens became a legend, the artificial intelligence who had sacrificed herself to protect descendants she had never met. And throughout the galaxy, beings who had forgotten what courage looked like began to remember. Dr. Kelthera often returned to the memorial in the years that followed. She would float in space near the monument, her crystal form catching the light of distant stars, and read the inscription they had placed there. "Here lies Athens, tactical intelligence of the UNSC Righteous Fury, and through her the spirit of humanity. They taught us that some things are worth fighting for, and some fights are worth winning, no matter the cost." The inscription was written in 12 different languages, representing all the species that had witnessed Athens' final battle. But it was also written in one more script, the angular, harsh-looking symbols of humanity. Because somewhere in the galaxy, scattered among the stars, the descendants of humanity's diaspora still remembered the language of their warrior ancestors. And they needed to know that their legacy lived on, not in weapons or conquest, but in the courage to protect what mattered most. The dream of peace was worth any sacrifice. And thanks to Athens, that dream would continue to grow among the stars.